Artificial intelligence is quietly reshaping the way we manage, search, and even feel about our photo collections. In this episode, we explore how Apple Photos is evolving with AI, from smarter recognition and categorization to intuitive sorting that almost seems to know what matters most to you. Join us as we learn from Apple Photos expert Paul Einarsen how AI in photo organizing can help you spend way less time managing and way more time treasuring your photos. Hi, and welcome to the DIY Photo Organizing Podcast, focusing on topics to help you with your photo management. I'm Chantal from Photos in Order.
And I'm Fiona from Counselling Memories. Hi, Chantal. How are you?
Hello, I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, great. I'm excited to jump into the podcast today. And what we're talking about today is we're diving into golden rule number 4, which is our sort and organize section of the 5 golden rules. And this is the part of the organizing process where we're talking about deduplicating and structuring our photo hub, culling photos and adding all of that really rich metadata so we can find photos. But what I'm so excited about today is that we have a very special guest with us, Paul Einarsen. Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm
Hello.
fine from way around the world.
Yes.
Yes.
The other side of the world. So, look, I'd love to, I'll just talk a little bit about why we're so excited to have Paul on today. Paul is a photo manager with over 40 years of experience in film and digital photography, commercial printing, and the desktop creative world. Paul's been trained by Apple as a genius and creative trainer. So Paul specializes in helping people create, organize, and share their photos using Apple Photos and related software. So this is really relevant for us today because we really want to find out and just sort of help our listeners look at how AI influences sort of this area of sorting and organizing in their photo organizing journey. And so being able to talk with Paul with you today, I think is going to help us sort of look specifically at the Apple Photo Library ecosystem and just have a chat about some of the changes that might influence people in how they're organizing their photos, and really also how AI is impacting that as well. So welcome, Paul. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, and so let me just ask for that to start off, if you can just tell us a little bit about whether you agree if AI is transforming the way that we manage our photos and how that is impacting us.
You bet.
Great.
This is a huge topic this year, and I appreciate being able to watch the latest rollout of the new operating systems and the discussions around AI. It is a big topic in photo organizing for some really good reasons, honestly. And I think to sort of cut to the chase, I think that it is going to have a huge impact in a positive way on how we can organize our photos and keep them organized, and even more importantly, how we view them, how we can curate them in a more streamlined way. Because I think one of the real challenges that I certainly see with people is just the time commitment that it takes to sort through things and put them together. Because at the end of the day, what we really want is to be able to enjoy our life story as simply as possible. It certainly is a really satisfying task to go through your photos and to organize them and so forth. But I think in the long term, what we really want is that old experience of sitting on a couch, flipping through our album,
Yeah.
and enjoying where we've been and who we've met and so forth. And to me, photos are kind of the bookmarks of our lives. They, in a lot of ways, it's not the image and the picture itself. It's kind of what it reminds us of.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you both are well aware, um, many of us have a legacy of photos that is uh, uh, voluminous. There's a lot of pictures that come from, possibly, different families, different generations. And what we really want to do is put them together. The promise of AI is that at some point it should be able to help manage at least a major part of that. And what we're seeing right now is, I think, kind of the tip of the iceberg. So we'll see where it goes, but it's promising. I think has the potential of being a real time saver. And also the way that the software can use AI to deliver us things in real time. I think the promise that Apple has certainly put out there, or the expectation, is that we should be able to ask for pictures of so and so at such and such a place and time, and it pull up those pictures, so that we're not sitting tediously going through the library to find them.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm interested, Paul. So when we talk AI, we think about all of these rich gathering of information. So you're talking here about being able to find those detailed types of photos that we're thinking of, and ask it to recall and search for us. Is there an increased technology recently with these new rolling outs of the updates with say OS 26 around the learning of my use of my photo library? So if I'm lingering on particular types of photos, is there an intuitive learning that's being done around, I like these kinds of photos with these kinds of groups, and then it will collate for me? Or is that a future thing, or am I just dreaming?
Well, here's the thing. Apple is, very cagey, I think, about exactly what they promise, and for good reason. It's because it's evolving. I can just tell you my personal experience is that, yes, that sort of thing is happening. I mean, I just celebrated my late mother's birthday, and her picture showed up, in the featured photos, which is pretty neat, honestly. And I've added that information into my database, and so I'm okay with that. And I think what Apple offers that almost nobody else really can at this point in time is a culture of privacy, to the extent that if we're going to trust our information, our personal information, relationships, things like that, with a company or with their devices, with their technology, I think Apple treats it as honestly and as appropriately as anybody does. And so, it is moving down that road. I see it happening more and more all the time in kind of unexpected ways, actually. I did a presentation about facial recognition, which has gotten to be incredibly good. And I don't know, one of the things I run into, I don't know about both of you, but I find a lot of clients who haven't ever really uh, played much with the people and pets facial recognition.
It's
Now
surprising how
people,
many don't know about it really, or have never tried
yeah,
it out. Yes, it is.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's one of those kind of under the radar things.
Mm,
Even though those of us in the business, have been following this for years, but
mm,
I think it's kind of an undiscovered or untrusted component for a lot of do-it-yourselfers that
mm,
they're kind of missing out on. And I think
Mm.
it's a wonderful place to start if you're
mm.
interested in the AI question.
Uh,
Yes,
Um,
so
yes.
can we just linger on that for a second?
sure.
If just say I'm new to sort of doing my photo organizing, I'm overwhelmed, and
Mhm.
I know I've got all my photos in on my phone. I've got Apple, and I'm going to have a start of this, the people, or starting to tag some things, or find, using what I've already got with the software.
Mhm.
Is going to the people function and feature, is it a time consuming process um, to have to catalog? Is it a process that the software has to then catalog everything if I turn it on, or do I just do a search? What's your advice to someone who's just starting out if they're saying, okay, I'm not going to go tag people in another software, I'm going to use
Mhm.
this feature? What's your advice to them if that was sort of their sort and organize part of their, and they're going to say, I'm going to find all the photos with my immediate family?
Mhm. I think it's a wonderful place to start. I think for people who have approached photo organizing in a more traditional way, a lot of manual, dating and so forth. Um, there are so many ways that you can go at photo organizing, but I think that the people tagging is a wonderful place to start. First of all, it's very easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
Apple has done a very nice job of setting it up so that you can go in and, as you say, the smart way to start is with your immediate family. Don't try to tag everybody that
Mm.
shows up in a picture.
Mm-hmm.
And what you will see when you go in there the first time is um, you'll see a grid of all the faces that that Photos has found, and you just start adding names to those faces.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is the software has already grouped, several people in one group. And once you tell it who it is, it then goes back and it looks for more of those.
Mm-hmm.
And so it actually is a learning experience in the way that, um, the way that you talk about AI, there is a learning component in there. Apple used to call it machine learning, and I think it's it's not crazy AI. It's very practical AI, and the fact that it can now very accurately pick out people is pretty neat.
It
And
is. Yeah.
right, I mean, if you've played with it very much, and I encourage people to play with it. I mean, this process should be a fun experience. And what's exciting about it is like my kids now are 33 and 31. And when I started this, I mean, facial recognition has been pretty good for maybe 8 or 9 years. Before that, it was kind of frustrating because it would miss people and so forth. But now it's really good, and it's especially good on Apple. So as I started tagging my family probably 6 or 7 years ago, seriously, and it can go back and accurately identify my kids when they were 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can, they look so close together, I can hardly differentiate them at 2 or 3, right? And
Yeah.
so, and the magic of it is once you tag some of these people and give them a name, now you've opened up opportunities in the memories feature, right?
Yes.
All of a sudden, it's over the years with Sally, and you and Sally in wherever.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love that. Yes.
Yeah, right. Which is the point, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's where you're talking about the bookmarks. They're the bookmarks.
Yes.
It's allowing those bookmarks of those memories and times to take place. And without those, then, so that's really helpful. So part of the this sort of discussion is around, we've got 5 golden rules, and sorting and organizing is sort of obviously where this is most helpful. When we talk about the topic of deduplication, in traditional photo organizing, this is something which we encourage to remove duplicates. And this is something that Apple's had as a feature for a little while now. A couple of years ago, I think they brought in this deduplication. Can you share a little bit about sort of what your take is about that feature now, and if it can sort of replace other apps that we've used in the past, and how accurate and even what the need for that is, in just your opinion and view on that, for people that are looking at a photo collection that has got a lot of duplicates in it?
Oh, absolutely. Let me position that, though, with a topic that I've run into a lot lately. Because when you talk about duplicates, we are talking about actual, they're not physical, but they're file copies of the same thing, right? Which is different than the way, well, I run into confusion about exactly how the database works. The Photos is actually a small computer database that's very, very powerful. And what I find happens is when people start applying real world organizing to digital organizing, one of the things that they don't quite grasp is the fact that one copy serves many, many purposes. So, in other words, what you're looking for deliberately is a single copy of each image in your database, because otherwise you would have one labeled in one place, one labeled in another place, and you pick up one and you go, doggone, I know I put a caption on that, but there's no caption on it because there's another copy and you've invested time on that. So the database works because you do get rid of duplicates and get it down to a single image. And that single image may show up in the library view. It may show up in 1 or 2 albums that you've created. It may show up in, the people feature. It can show up in multiple places, but you're still looking at the same image. And when almost every week I run into a question of why can't I move an image from the library to my album, right?
Yes.
Well, it's because of this digital universe and how it works. So, having said that, the problem with duplicates in our world is that often we share an image, it goes out to our cousin or our mom or something else, and 2 months later they're looking at their library and they go, I don't know if Paul has this picture, and they send it back to you as an attachment to an email, right? And so then you go, well, I'm pretty sure I have that, but you put it in your library.
I'll save it anyway, right?
Right, exactly.
Yep.
I'm not sure, and I don't have time to check now, so I'm going to go back and do that. So this is kind of how this happens. Or as we all have run into, we have clients who have made multiple copies of their photo library over the years, and now are challenged to try and put everything in one place so that they can have one nice, clean thing. So we've relied on these applications for years to help sift all that out and clean it up. The challenge, the real single challenge in that process is, over time, you probably have added information, dates have changed. There's the metadata, the part of it that gives the image context, that may be different among different photos. What Apple figured out, which is brilliant, is in their deduplication service feature, when it finds two duplicates, it analyzes to find which one is the best of the duplicates, because inevitably one is low res, one is high res, or so forth. And if the high quality one was added to one album and the low quality one was added to another album, what it will do is actually take the best image and merge all the data with that best image, which is a wonderful feature that I haven't seen in other deduplication software. So it for a do-it-yourselfer who's nervous about, am I safe doing this? I encourage them to do it because it cleans things up and it sort of consolidates all the effort that you've invested in that particular image.
Can I ask, talking about, Apple merges everything and keeps the best image. What does it consider the best image? What's the criteria for that? Is that the size or?
It's the size, the resolution, not
The
the
resolution,
file
yes.
size, but the resolution.
Okay.
In all the tests that I've tried, it is the resolution and the earliest capture date are like the two biggies. So we're always trying to find the original source image if we possibly can.
Yes.
Now, without getting too technical on this, but you just raised a question that I thought of about the albums. So people have used albums in the past and may have a lot of albums, which are very helpful for them to be a way that they used to, almost instead of key wording, this is, slide photos into an album. So that's a way of being able to categorize certain grouping of photos. If there is, say, a duplicate photo, I mean, I understand that we have one photo and it can be in multiple albums.
Mm-hmm.
But if we've just received that email and or text and we've saved it to our camera roll and then we've put it into another album, if there's this sort of checking from the Apple software about duplicates and they're in different places of, in say different albums, which have made sense to the person who's put them there,
Mm-hmm.
is that replaced? So if it's merging that data and it's chosen the best quality, and that one of those photos was in an album but the other one was in a different album, is it going to put that in both places, or it's
It
just sort of
is.
taken out? It is.
It is. I mean,
Oh.
that you explain it better than I did, but
Oh.
yes.
Okay.
that's that is the magic. It is that, you're consolidating you're finding the best image and you're consolidating all the relevant data into that image. So in effect, that reintroduced photo gets replaced by the good photo in that album.
Yes,
Yeah.
so it keeps the albums intact. And also, what I wondered though, when it compares the photos and finds duplicates, if one version has been edited, let's say it's been cropped or edited in other ways, will it still find it as a duplicate or not? Does it have to be the kind of exact same thing?
You know, I have to say that there are some gray areas in
Mm,
in the process. Um, in my experience, hardly anybody ever edits their photos to start with.
true, yes.
They haven't kind of gotten to that point.
Mm,
Um, I don't know. I honestly have just never tested to see what the limit of that is. But I
mm.
think that at some point, um, the I think that Apple Photos will consider them as two different images
Yes,
and
I
leave
think
it and
it
leave
would
it alone.
probably, yes, yes, yes.
Now,
Which is not
here's
a big deal because, as you say, people will probably not have thousands of those. So if there's a
um,
double here and there, it's not the end of the world either, is it?
right, but you bring
Mm,
up a good point, and it reminds me that one of the features of the deduplication is, let's say you um, have 2,000 duplicates. Okay,
mm,
you can select all of those. This is the other thing: select all and say merge. And
mm,
when you do that, you'll get a dialog that says, "Do you want to merge exact duplicates or similar?" And I think this is where your question comes up. I think, if it perceives that there is something, unique and unmergeable with one
mm.
of the images, it will put it, I think, into that similar category. And then you can get rid of the exact duplicates. You now have a sub collection of similar that you're
Mm.
just going to have to go through and decide yourself,
Yeah,
whether
true. That's
whether
I
it's
forgot about that. Yes, yes. And it's
now.
amazing when people this or when you show that deduplication to people and they get lots of duplicates and with one or two clicks basically you can get rid of it. It's like magic. It's like
It
everyone loves
is.
that. It's like, oh, it already feels better, cleaned up a bit. Which kind of brings us, we'll get back to albums and collections in a minute, but since we're talking about getting rid of photos, um obviously we also, well, maybe it's not so obvious because I know there's sort of like two schools of thinking around that, how to cull or not to cull and the positive and negative culling. So some people, they're like, we don't, can't be bothered deleting photos, I'll just love heart my favorites and that's sort of my most precious
Mhm.
ones. But we personally, I have to say, I still encourage people to delete photos they don't want to keep or they don't need, just to bring that numbers down because actually goes sort of back into our last episode where we talked about what influence our photos have on environment and so on, because it's, even though it's in the cloud, obviously it's somewhere on a hard drive that requires resources. So we do still
Mm-hmm.
encourage people to bring those numbers down and just to delete, because it's, yeah, as you say, an average collection these days has easily 30,000 plus photos,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to keep that under control. So in terms of culling photos, is there anything in Apple Photos that you would say can help us cull more easily or more efficiently, rather than, just going one by one or something? Is there any feature that we might not be aware of that can help us?
Um, Not specifically.
Mm,
Um, they haven't. There are definitely other bits of software that get into the quality of image, and it really is more quality of image. I think,
mm,
culling is a challenge because what's meaningful to one person isn't
Mm,
always meaningful to someone else.
yep.
yes.
I have a hard time with it for different reasons, but you certainly can uh, find blurry photos.
Mm,
Um, you know, I think that um, the only tool I can think of that kind of goes there. And it's not really a tool, but it is a feature of the new OS, and was actually last year as well. What people don't always realize is when you go into a collection now, whatever that collection is, whether it's recent days, even
mm,
even people, if you pull up people and so forth, what you're looking at is what's called a summary view
yes.
by
Mm,
default. And the summary can be 20% of the actual photos in that collection.
mm,
uh, the intent obviously from Apple is, these are the keepers, these are the ones that by whatever standard they're judging, these are the
mm-hmm,
best ones. So one could argue that's sort of maybe a starting point
mm-hmm,
for Apple to start to get into that. I don't know, but there's
yeah.
no real tool per se that addresses that I know of.
Yeah, it might be also the different categories, like it sorts, you can look at all the screenshots in one collection or all the videos and
Exactly.
all
Yeah.
Mm,
those things. And I think that's always been a good starting point.
yeah.
Yep. And
Yeah.
documents. Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's interesting. So we're talking about the summary that it can make out of our photos. That it's this AI software has looked at everything. It's got a collection. It's giving us our memories.
Mm-hmm.
In a nice sort of self contained package there, which is really a feature that I think is so welcomed and loved by so many people. They're just
Mm-hmm.
it's a really beautiful, surprising, oh yeah, sort of a
Yeah.
recognition
Yeah.
of that collection of way of being accessing these memories. When we come back to our sorting and organizing concept in traditional ways of metadata,
Mm-hmm.
um, and finding a theme that we're wanting to recall, so therefore keywording that,
Mm-hmm.
um, putting a description on, adding all the different types of metadata that we know we can add:
Mm-hmm.
ratings, facial recognition, keywords, location, description, file names. We have dates and things like that. With this memory feature that comes up with these collections that the software's doing for us, What's your view on the need for the user, for us? Now I've got my iPhone. Do I need to then put those keywords on? How do I capture then if I say, oh, I like that it's collected this memory. Say you gave the example of your mum as a memory of that birthday celebration. Just say there was a family holiday trip that the software's seen we go on regularly to this location or something. Do I then just save that memory for it? Do I keyword? Do I go in? Where's this sort of mix of the past, what has happened with keywording and metadata, and using this intuitive collection of AI's ability?
Good question.
So that's basically, adding metadata manually, does that become redundant?
Well, I think at some point it will, but I think it becomes redundant. We're at this point where, and actually, I think OS 26 is probably a tipping point, because you can go in, you can create a memory by just dictating, show me, my kids playing in the living room kind of thing. And if you play with it and figure out the jargon well enough, you can create these curated, auto curated collections. The thing is that there's a trade-off, and we have to remember that so many of the keywords that we used to use are pretty basic keywords. I mean, and they're not necessary. I mean, the software is going to be able to, again, assuming you play the game and add enough information into the database, it's going to be able to know when my birthday is, and it's going to be able to deliver that. One of the interesting things you'll see now when you go to tag somebody in people and pets is every once in a while you'll get a pop-up that offers to connect it to that person in your contact list.
Yes.
And so whatever you've added to that person in the contact list can be leveraged in some way or other, right, to do that. So I think, I used to keyword beach. I'm a beach guy, right? And I used to keyword beach. I don't even bother anymore because object recognition knows what a beach is. It knows any location that I've shot a photo and added to the photo or included with the photo. It knows if it was within a mile of a beach. It knows, what the street name was if it had beach in it. So I think, in one respect, it's hard to let go of some of these tools that have been so good to us for so many years, right? And we as professionals really got ahead of things by helping the software do this stuff. Well, now the software is capable of taking over a lot of that stuff. What it's not capable of doing is offering a complete context around what was going on. And so to me, going forward, I'm focused more and more on captions and descriptions and explanations than I am on specific keywords.
So, no, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was
No, I was just wondering, as you were talking, and mentioning, over the years, we all did what was best practice and added keywords and whatnot. Now, let's assume, well, I can say I've done that, but mostly outside Apple Photos. But then I brought those photos into Apple Photos, into my library. Now, is my library learning from those keywords I have put in the past to create those collections and to feed me with those grouped photos and things? Does it actually learn from what I've done? Do you know that?
Well,
Sorry to put
this
you on the
is
spot. It just came to
no,
my mind.
actually, it's a timely question because I found out quite by accident about a month ago that the iPhone, the photos on the iPhone does not recognize external keywords.
Oh,
Um, I
right.
believe it does for whatever reason. Um, I think it does on the Mac,
Yes,
um,
okay.
but for whatever reason, keywords,
Mm.
there is it is something that is, well, and you think about it, you can't add keywords on the iPhone either,
Yeah, true. Okay. Yes, yes. But
right?
you
The
can
only
on the
thing,
Mac. Yes,
but you
yes,
can on the Mac, and
yes.
so
Yeah.
my guess is
Mm.
that the technology sort of mimics what the capabilities are, and
Mm.
the device that you're using.
Yeah,
So
wow,
the,
that's
the
really interesting. Really
mm.
interesting. I just want to jump into one thing you mentioned before about your shift away, say from, well, keywords not on the phone anyway, but in the whole Apple system, um, to giving context to what's going on
Mm-hmm.
in the photo and around that grouping. So, and that's very meaningful to me, because that's where it comes into the meaning of the photos, and that's really the impact of what we're doing, why photos are important to us, why this
Mm-hmm.
collection is important to us, what was happening, and then being able to capture that is really valuable. Um, I'm interested to see what other sort of changes you've made in how your photo management works with your collection. So you've given us this example of not doing sort of this keywording of beach, say, and adding
Mm-hmm.
more context around, say, the title or the caption, to give meaning to that. Would you do that to one photo, or do you do it to a group of photos? Like, how are you doing that?
Well, it's a work in progress. Let me add that. Um, I've come to actually, I have to credit Isabel Dervaux for coming up with this, but she told me some time ago when we were talking that the photo library is a living document,
Mhm.
which has a lot of implications to it. And from that, I have come up with what, for me, it's sort of my philosophy, which is that every photo has an expiration date. There are photos that I take today that will expire tomorrow, right? They have
Mm.
no, and this is, I have to say, this is the consequence of us being full-time photographers on mobile. That is so much a part of our lives in so many ways. I mean, I start referring to uh, the population as accidental photographers because
Mm.
many people that we work with who are actively using photos and taking photos all the time, um, kind of never intended to be. They never took pictures before, and now they're taking tons of pictures.
Mhm.
So and also, Chantel, when you talk about the 30,000 image library, well, we have to stop thinking about the 30,000 image library, because if we take 2,500, I'm a 2,500 a year person, right? You can go and you can look each year. You can add up your last 10 years and average it out and see how many photos you take. And I think it's pretty consistent. But we have people we're working with now that there is no way they are not going to have a photo library with over 100,000 pictures by the time they're retired or give up on taking pictures. So that's a long way of saying that what I really try to do is stay on top of the new pictures that I take. I think that's one of the best things people can do, and then start working backwards to cull your photos. And sometimes you have to do it manually. Sometimes my library, I will freely admit, is very messy because I'm taking tons of bad photos to illustrate what bad photos are, and they end up, in places that they shouldn't. So my feeling is, first of all, if I have some context that I really want to preserve and save for an event or for something or rather, I find a key photo from that event and apply it to that. And I try to do that when I take it. Because the beautiful thing about the iPhone now is that you can swipe up, get to the caption field, description field, whatever it's called, and you can even dictate a quick note and say, this was my long lost cousin from wherever, and his dog Sparky, and I can always then go back and find that photo, and you have that cool feature of show this photo in the library. So now you can then go back and see that collection, right? In the library. And I can then pull other photos, or I can simply copy that caption, select all, and paste all, and do it very quickly, which is much faster than doing it individually, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And I think that's the fact that you can find things by location, by person who was there, by date, there's any number of ways now that we have to automatically do some of these things. I think that the cool stuff, assuming you sort of stay ahead of the clutter, assuming that you do that, then the cool stuff comes down to actually making curated albums. The stuff that may end up as a book, or it may end up as a slideshow, or it might just be something that you want to go see from time to time and have a record of.
Yeah.
Because at some point, I had a client, I think the numbers they had almost 3,000 albums. Well,
yes.
3,000 albums becomes clutter in and of itself.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a challenge, but I think that part of our purpose really is to help people start to incorporate photo management into their daily lives. And it is really becoming a life skill. And for all of us who are sharing photos and communicating with family around the world, that we haven't seen in a while with photos. I think you have to do that.
So on that point, what would you say, Paul, is one of maybe the most common sort of mistakes, maybe, that you see people making when they're organizing their photos in this way?
The way that I just described?
If they're wanting to organize their photos on their phone, and they're staying within there. So if we're going to, like you said, it really is the being able to, as a skill, manage daily and learn how to do this well. What are some shifts that you think might be helpful in this progression of the software, this understanding of the power that we have that we may not know? So patterns that have happened in the past, that maybe mistakes people are continuing to make, that might be something that you've seen that someone could say, okay, I'm going to make this change after listening to Paul today. And I'm managing my photos on my phone, and they're all in, well, let's assume that they've got their photo library in Apple, but they may not have everything in there yet. But what are some common things that you would say, people are doing that they could maybe make a little shift or a tweak?
Good question. I think, whatever they're using, I think the number one thing I would recommend is to play with whatever software they're using until it doesn't intimidate them. I find so many people, I sort of call it like, Dorothy's ruby slippers. They have the power to do really amazing things, and it gets better every year. That they're intimidated by, and I saw this at the Genius Bar as well. They're intimidated that, number one, that they're going to break something. The wonderful thing about the Apple Photos ecosystem is you really have to work at things to break something. Yeah, and you can, but it's really hard. If you, as long as you're doing things consistently and paying attention to what's going on, and you do things a few times, deleting photos is like, oh my God, well, you do it a few times and you go to recently deleted photos and you see, yep, it's there, or it's not there, and you figure it out. And after a while, it's not that big a deal. And all of a sudden, the next step is, at the end of the day, even the end of the week, if you're that tight for time, to spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can skim through that many photos really fast.
Yes.
And I think that, to my point about, every photo has an expiration date, you have to accept the fact that just because you keep a photo this week doesn't mean you have to keep it 2 weeks from now, right?
True. Yes.
So it is a living document. It's, and stuff, may be okay today, but it may not be okay tomorrow. And the organizing community is not, kind of hasn't embraced that. I think that it is a living thing. There is clients are the same way. I know people who freak out that they have 2,500 pictures in their photo library, and I'm going, that's a year for me.
Yes.
I'd be missing a whole lot. But what you find once you learn new habits, all of it ultimately goes to using the tools as efficiently as possible.
Yep.
And in order to do that, you have to play with them and understand what they do, right? Um, and so I think getting comfortable with the software, accepting that things are going to come and go, and that's okay. And God, there was one other thing that popped up. I'll try to think of it, but that is what I really hope people start to embrace. Is it is a part of all of our lifestyles now. Oh, I know what it was. That we look at the everybody is so familiar with the camera roll. You got this endless grid, and people, we've all sat next in the table next to the person who's trying to find that picture for their, to show everybody. And, by the time they do, the conversation has moved on. That's how we learned. I mean, we learned with real photos, and we flipped through the envelopes, and we did all this sort of thing. And so it's a natural thing to do that. But it's also really intimidating, because we all know what a pain that is to go through all these things. So what Apple, and this is specific, I just wrote about to the new OS on the iPhone, is they've split the library into two parts. You get the library grid view, which has all your photos, and you have the collections view, which has these curated, auto curated, and manually curated collections. And it's when you look at your library, it looks like a terrible task. It's like, my gosh, you're never going to get through that. But you go into collections, and you go to recent days, and all of a sudden, one day isn't that big of a deal.
I actually really like that feature. I'm just back from a 3-week road trip. And this was so helpful because I posted on a different app, so that friends and family could follow our trip. And to upload, that app connects directly into my Apple photo library, so I could prepare it all in the library. But the collection with the days, like yesterday, Tuesday, Monday, Sunday, that was so helpful to have. And I didn't have to do anything. It just all happened magically, and it was sort of curated for me and ready to go. So that's a really cool feature. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and isn't it nice? You sort of have guardrails. It says,
Yes.
okay, this was the beginning of the day. This was the end of the day. That's all I have to look
Yes.
at. Let me do that.
Yes. Yeah.
So
It takes away the overwhelm.
yeah, and I
Sure.
think
Yeah.
that's the thing I'm sort of really taking away from this, as far as, like, for people listening that have sort of wanting to get a good overview of what's happening on the changes, and not to be afraid of it, and just to learn more, is to start to think differently about that camera roll versus the collection. And so it can reduce the overwhelm. It can reduce that urgency almost to have to go through all of those past photos, because there's a way for us not to see it all the time, which is helpful. And I'm not saying let's just sweep that under the rug and not deal with that, because we would all love, just in the ideal world, a perfectly organized, curated, and up-to-date selection of our photos in the phone. But that's sort of something that can help to really bring that rich meaning to our photos, to give us the opportunity to look through our phone in a way that isn't with the feeling of overwhelm, and so that's sort of my biggest takeaway, I think, from this at the moment, is how AI and these, intelligence of Apple's, looking into the future with how we're going to think about our photos. And that's exciting. I really see that that's exciting for people that want to have an organized photo collection. And that may in practicality look a bit different to what we've traditionally thought an organized photo collection might look like. Is that a fair kind of a thought in my mind, Paul? Am I on the right track here?
No, totally. I have to say that, I think that is the way forward, to do that. But of course, everybody comes from a different place and is of different ages and different backgrounds. I have totally worked with people who simply, they get so much pleasure out of just seeing something organized, that is as much of a pleasure as really enjoying the pictures themselves or the experiences themselves. So I think, we're in a fascinating place, helping people kind of find their style, and yet the main thing that has changed is, I think, traditional photo organizing had kind of a fixed view. There was always a collection that needed to be digitized and needed to be organized digitally, and then you said, okay, we're done. And the reality is we're now in this ongoing environment where we need to consider what is coming, what's going, how do we create this ongoing lifestyle experience.
And it's not like it's gonna go away. We
no.
either embrace AI, and yes, it can be very scary. I'm not talking about photo management, but generally speaking, and there's, not enough regulations yet, and we sort of, it's a bit, I'm scared, I have to say, but not in terms of photos. I think when it comes specifically to Apple photos, I do believe we should embrace what they offer. We should, use what we have. If we buy an iPhone or a Mac, it comes with it. It's there. It doesn't cost us an extra cent. So, why not learn what's there and play with it, as you say, and embrace it? And as you said right at the start, so at some point in time, it can save us a ton of time to manage our photos if we don't have to add keywords and whatnot. Imagine, this is so time consuming when you do that manually. And if there's an AI feature in Apple Photo Library that helps us do that or makes it redundant, why on earth would we not embrace it?
Yeah.
It's we're all short on time, we're all busy, we've got busy lives and all that. And also another point you touched on, which is, of course, Apple was always known for that privacy is pretty strict within the Apple ecosystem compared to, especially to other software that is out there. But again, I'd encourage people to learn about it and not be afraid of it too much. Yeah.
So Paul, you've got various courses that you offer people, as well as a really great weekly newsletter. So I can you just share a little bit about how people can find you and some of the offerings that you have, to help the people in your world, and just so that people could know a little bit about how they might be able to access some of those things from you?
You bet. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, I really, what I recommend to people mostly is to sign up for my newsletter. It's 5-minute photos .substack.com, and it's the numeral 5 and minute photos, all one word, .substack.com. And my whole point there is I'm really targeting the people who are sort of accidental photographers who have discovered photography probably on their iPhone, and like it and use it, and may not have any aspiration to become a photo geek, but really enjoy what they're doing. And so as it says, I keep the newsletters to under a 5-minute read. But I go, it's not just how to step by step kind of thing. I try to bring some interesting context so that people who didn't grow up with photography can start to understand how these different pieces work, because it's pretty fascinating what we have to work with. So 5-minute photos, I think, is a great place to start. For people who are looking for more than that, I have Blue Water Imaging Photo Workshops, which is an online training platform. And I have training from how to get around on your iPhone to how to learn to be a photo manager, or at least understand, the professional end of photo management. So there's that. And then, like all of us, I do private consults and so forth as well. And you can reach me at paul@bluewaterimaging.com.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
And we'll pop all those notes and links also into the show notes. So that's really helpful. Some really very specific types of offering for people. And so, I really hope that that's something that our listeners can to reach out and just have a look at some of those things, because I know that Chantel and I have both really valued your expertise, and your resources are fantastic. Really encourage that newsletter. It's fantastic. That is wrapping up for today. We are so grateful for your time, Paul, for your insights, for such a natural flowing, interesting conversation about things that are passionate to all of us, and obviously listeners that have found the podcast to be able to just get some really rich information, food for thought, I think, about maybe some new ways to think about these beautiful, precious memories that we hold in our hands and our bags and our wallets every day and our pockets. And so, just thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Paul. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah. So to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. You're welcome to find out more information about us over at our at the website, and leave us some wish list topics that you might like us to cover in the future. I am Fiona from Counselling Memories.
And I'm Chantal from Photos in Order. Thank you, Paul, again. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. And as always, happy photo organizing. Have some fun with it. Bye.
Bye.
Hear, hear.